Hey, what's happening everyone? This is the video you've been looking for to convince yourself to buy this drone. Let's do it. The DJI Avata 2 was one of the most anticipated FPV drone launches ever, if not the most anticipated launch ever. The first Avata was pretty freaking good, but like any first generation product, it had its issues. But with the Avata 2, it's almost a flawless drone, and I'm gonna give you 5 reasons why you should buy it. If you're watching this video, genuinely congrats. This is part of a 2-part series where I basically do a 5 reasons not to buy this drone and 5 reasons to buy this drone. And if past performance is any indication, the video about why not to buy it is gonna get 10 times the amount of views that this one does. So needless to say, I'm happy to see you here. And if you haven't already, after you're done watching this video, I'll leave a link down in the description for the top 5 reasons not to buy it, just to give yourself a balanced perspective on things. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. And the number 1 reason why this drone is way better than the first one is this right here. This is an easily accessible SD card port. See that right there? And you can access the SD card. And I'm kind of kidding about that being the most important new upgrade on this drone, but also kind of not, because SD card port on the first Avata was in potentially the worst location imaginable, because it's right next to propellers. You have to line the propellers up, and then eventually you get access to the SD card. Anyways, I'm freaking stoked about that. When DJI first approached me about this new product, one of the first things that they told me was the fact that the SD card port is now accessible. So shout out DJI for just listening to your customers. All right, let's actually now get into the number 1 reason that you should buy this drone. And that is because it just freaking flies. One of the biggest hurdles about flying FPV in the past was just everything that it took to actually get in the air. Even if you were able to master the flying part of it, like spent a bunch of time in the simulator, you're good to go, then you had to find all the parts. You had to get a receiver, a GoPro mount, a drone, a controller, and just all these different components, and it was just so complicated, and really still is to this day. But with the Avata 2, we have the drone, motion controller, if you want it, normal controller, the one that I usually fly, batteries, and goggles. And it comes in this tiny little bag. When you're flying with the Avata, there's just so much room for snacks in your bag. Of course, there are benefits to flying custom setups, and a big part of that is the upgraded video quality, because you're able to shoot on an action camera like a GoPro on top. But that leads me into my next reason to buy this drone, and that is actually the video quality itself. It is a huge jump from the original Avata. On the original Avata, I honestly really never even considered using the footage out of it for professional shoots, because it just wasn't there yet. So whenever I used the Avata to fly, which I did quite a bit, I would just mount a GoPro on top. You can kind of see my mounting setup here. I just put a GoPro sticky on the battery, just so I could fly the Avata and take advantage of a lot of the features, but I'd also get GoPro quality. But with this one, in good lighting conditions, I would definitely consider using the footage straight out of the camera. And the reason for that jump in quality is a few things. First off, it's a much bigger sensor. So right off the bat, it's gonna be better in low light, just because there's more surface area to absorb light with. And then another thing that's really cool is you can now adjust the sharpness and noise reduction in camera. So you can get rid of that weird like crunchiness that most action cameras have unless you turn the sharpness down. And then on top of that, you can finally shoot in D-Log-M, which basically means you're gonna preserve a ton of detail in your highlights, shadows, and then because of the 10-bit, you're gonna get so many more colors, and just, it's gonna be a much more accurate picture as a whole. The last Avata shot D-Cinelike, which is kind of like log, but it's more so just a desaturated picture, and it was kind of hard to color grade, so I found myself just shooting in normal and never using that mode. And if you're someone who doesn't want to do a bunch of editing in post, it now shoots in HDR, which is awesome, because it kind of does a similar thing, but in camera. Here are a few clips that I shot when I was testing, and when I looked at them, I just went, wow. Next up, I want to talk about how good the connection is on this thing. And the reason for that is it has upgraded 04 transmission technology, which essentially means you can go really freaking far away from yourself, and if there's obstacles in between you and your drone, it's not that big of a deal, or less of a big deal than it was before. I've done quite a few long range tests with this drone, which, by the way, if you do want to check one of those out, I'll leave a link up here so you can check that out after you're done watching this video. But anyways, I think the farthest that I got out was about 3,000 meters, which is pretty freaking far even with my normal, regular long range setups. The overall design of this thing is definitely not made specifically for long range, but it's quite a bit better than the original Avata. It's just a lot more sleeker, has a bit of a wider frame, and like I said, does a lot better than the Avata 1, but you're gonna absolutely shred through battery if you're doing that, just because it is more of a close range drone. And then when I'm flying in situations where there is obstacles in between me and the drone, I'm worried a lot less about the thing losing connection and falling out of the sky. In that respect, it's better than every single one of my FPV drones. So if you're someone who likes flying through the woods, flying through buildings, and you want the best connection possible, this is gonna be literally your best bet on the entire market. Which leads me into my next point, which is basically that even if you do lose connection, it's fine. It's the safest FPV drone that I've ever flown. The reason for that is the classic DJI GPS inside. When you lose connection on a normal FPV drone, one of two things happens. First, it immediately plummets out of the sky and the drone is gone. Or two, you just hope and pray to God that you installed your GPS correctly and it comes back to you. DJI just makes the best GPS units in drones, and it's something that I really hope they potentially add to future air units to use on other different sized FPV drones. And because the return to home and GPS features are just so good on this thing, I just feel way more comfortable flying super far away from myself or in between obstacles. They even have a GPS position hold button that basically when you're in like a sketchy situation or something, you can just press it and the drone will just automatically stop and hover right there. DJI, if you're watching this, I think you missed a great opportunity to call it an oh shit button, but that's just me. The last thing that I want to touch on, which is kind of similar to my first point that I made, but I wanted to dedicate a whole category to it just because it is so important, and that's the fact that this is the best beginner FPV drone I've ever seen. There are two big hurdles for people getting into the FPV world. One is actually getting a drone up into the air. That's a huge issue. Before DJI came into the market with these like ready to fly setups, it was super challenging to just get a working drone. You had to watch like 15 Joshua Bardwell videos before you even had a slight clue as to what was going on. And then the second issue that people faced was actually not destroying their drone immediately, like what happened to me. I spent like 6 months building this drone and immediately tanked it from like 100 feet up, cratered into the neighbor's lawn, and I was very sad. The first DJI FPV and a lot of the sort of ready to fly setups are pretty fragile. So you can crash a few times, but after a while, something is bound to break. But the Avata 2 is ridiculously durable. I mean, you'd have to be absolutely hauling sack to break the frame on this thing. On top of that, it has a ton of features that are sort of just aimed towards beginners, where you can slowly progress towards manual flying. If you're looking for your first ever FPV drone, look no further than this. Also, if you're kind of scared about the price tag of this one and you find a really good deal on the first Avata, this is also still a really great drone to learn on. But if you can afford it, the Avata 2 is a big upgrade, especially when it comes to the camera. All right, so that is about it for this video. If you guys haven't already checked out my top 5 reasons not to buy the DJI Avata 2, I'll leave a link right up here. So make sure you go check that out just to get both sides. And as always, if you guys are already going to buy this drone, there's an affiliate link down below where I get a little bit of a kickback if you purchase through that link, which just helps me make more videos like this. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you on the next video. Peace.